I just ran my first ever marathon, and this is a debrief of the whole experience.
Yes, this is the Running Channel podcast with me, Sarah Hartley, who's run a marathon, Rick Kelsey, who's not in the corner this week, and he's run a marathon.
It's good to do some work.
And finally, Andy Baddeley, who's run a marathon.
I have run a marathon. Woo!
Let's get into it.
So we're on tour. We're in Valencia.
Yeah.
I have just run a marathon, but yes, Rick has just said that he's going to do a little bit of work because he's been here all weekend, and this is literally the first moment that he's doing a second of work.
Hey. He's done an arm workout every night, drinking the Gavi that you can drink.
He has been. Yeah, he's been drinking his way through Valencia.
I've been on the Verdecchio. I think it's the
How does that
Verdecchio.
compare?
I'll tell you what, the wine around these parts is pretty good.
Is it?
As we've been, and I've been to the spa. It's not just drinking wine. I went to the spa as well.
You know the other thing. So we're in a few different hotels, and Rick was like, "Oh, Freddie, who ran with you,
yes,
you're in a good hotel. I visited that spa, and Rick's booked us all in for tomorrow morning."
We are all going for a group spa session, which I think
told
some
you
of
we were
us,
close.
some of us have earned more than others.
Yeah, and we're all going to be in the spa in our swim caps together.
I think you were in the spa
Love
this morning,
that.
weren't you, whilst I was running a marathon? Is that why I only saw you at 40 kilometres?
I didn't think you were going to go there.
So early on.
Yeah.
Right, let's go back. Let's go back to the whole start. So you've run it. You've
Yes.
done it. Well done. But let's start at the beginning. How are you feeling this morning?
This morning, I was going to say, how am I feeling now? This morning, I was terrified. It took me back to when I was competing professionally, and this is the bit I hated. I just wanted to be on the start line and ready to go, and like stop worrying about all of the stuff that I might have done wrong or right, or do I need to, do another poo, and then like get on the start line and get going. And actually, once I got on the start line, I was fine. But it was all of the moments leading up to that were so nerve-wracking. It's unreal.
There is a lot of like build up to marathons as well. Like you have to, if you're running abroad, you have to get there. Then also you're on a plane and every single person is in a pair of running shoes.
Yes.
Like you can just tell you're around runners. Then you arrive in the city and there's like advertisements everywhere. Then you go to the expo and you have to collect your bib. Like there's a lot of, like when they do pep rallies in America,
Yes.
it's like one big pep rally.
Yeah, Andy queuing for the bib at the expo was actually quite a sight to behold. He wasn't.
Yeah.
I wasn't happy.
He's not used to queuing. He's
So-
not a good queuer.
No, so really usefully, Valencia Marathon tells you the busy times for the expo. So we
went at the busy time.
Yeah, we went. So we did the ShakeOut run in the morning. Really lovely 5K.
And Freddie had to deal with, so Freddie ran with me the whole race today. To
Videographer,
film.
pacer, extraordinaire.
Absolute legend. We'll come on to that.
Ran backwards during parts of the marathon.
But he had to deal with you've all had to deal with unbearable Andy for the last 48 hours where I was talking, I think, to ease my nerves. And it was, so he had the full shakeout run of me just babbling at him.
Yeah, luckily you left me and Rick pretty quickly.
Very quickly.
We had a
First
lovely
K,
shakeout
run. Apart from the last 2Ks.
Did Rick finish?
Well, so the shakeout run.
He didn't dive off into a spa halfway around.
No, he managed to stay focused for the whole 5K.
Brilliant.
Although what me and Rick did is that the shakeout run was amazing. Like so many people came along and we started like quite far at the back. And then as we got into it a little bit more, like there was some music playing and me and Rick were like,
Should we do
without
this?
talking to each other, we were like, okay, we'll pick the pace up a little bit. Then we said to each other like, oh, we should crack on now a bit. Before we knew it, last kilometre, we dropped like a 4:20 kilometre.
Yeah,
so you just all out.
Bearing in mind the first kilometre was a 7-minute kilometre.
Yeah.
And again, did not speak to each other, but were both like...
Dripping.
And then I think as well, because we'd been weaving so
Yeah.
much, our watch had then tracked the entire distance. So we were fully just off. And we clock ticked over into 5K and there was still a good like 400 metres to go. We both just
it was
looked at each other
5.5K
like,
at least.
this was an error.
Oh, was it 5.5K? That must have been really, really tough for you.
Yeah,
it was.
really
It was
hard.
like at 4:15 per kilometre pace.
Well, the last
And
kilometre was.
The last kilometre.
Yeah.
And we've worked out that our fast kilometre, Sarah, that we did yesterday.
Yeah.
Andy ran quicker than that the
For
whole,
the whole
race.
marathon,
4:05 a kilometre he ran today.
Which, makes me feel, in a word, inadequate. But also, we tried.
We tried really hard.
We tried really hard.
Well, I guess we'll come on to the pacing and the whole marathon, but what was interesting for me, I'm really glad we did the group shakeout because there was several thousand of the runners that were going to be running in the marathon doing the shakeout.
Yeah.
And actually I got that. I just never had that experience of being in a crowd that big, that closely packed together where you kind of can't, it's a lot of stuff's out of your control, like where you were able to run, how fast you're able to run. And so I think that was like a really good practice for what was going to happen in the race itself.
Yeah, because you're obviously like, you're an incredibly experienced runner, but not in marathons or mass participation events. You didn't, we've joked about this on the podcast, but you didn't have someone chaperone you to the start line. You didn't, have your own VIP tent next to the start line.
Well, you had Freddie.
You had Freddie.
Yeah.
He did chaperone me. And we queued to the toilets together, so that was excellent.
Oh, that's nice.
But no, it was so different. And yeah, normally I only had, 11 other people to worry about in my races, not 32,999.
Crazy.
Well, before we get into the actual race itself, we put up a post on Instagram the night before so that people could wish you luck.
Yes.
And I just have to say, there was some incredible comments from podcast listeners. So I screenshotted a few. Some of my favourites were, "Don't worry, Andy, it's just 1 mile for each of your kids."
That's brilliant.
And then
26.2 kids, yeah.
Yeah, and then Garmin commented, "Remember to start your Garmin."
Yes.
Useful tip. Did you?
I did. It's there for posterity. It's on my watch and on Strava, yeah.
Perfect. And then this is a great one. "Go Andy, enjoy where you are. Brackets, probably not the day to nip into a supermarket for a bottle of water or to look out over fields." That's from Heather.
True.
Yes,
Very
true.
true.
I did neither of those things.
You didn't even stop. You didn't even have a wee.
No, there was no weeing. I was very proud of myself for that.
And then one more incredible one. "Good luck, Andy. Just think of it as 28 and a bit 1,500 metre races in a row and you'll be fine."
I'm glad that you didn't share these with me before the race.
It's really good.
Because that would have been going through my mind, that one about the multiple of how many 1,500 metre races it was.
It's like when you break it down, like only a park run to go. You can't really do that as an ex-1,500 metre runner.
It was horrible. But I've also had some lovely messages from people on Strava since having run the marathon. A lot of them basically just saying, "Well, what are Rick and Sarah going to give you stick for now? Well done, Andy. You've done a marathon."
You're still old.
Well, there's still quite a lot to give you stick for. Yeah.
You're still
Okay.
you.
We won't get on to how...
Just my face.
You've just run a marathon.
I mean, you've said to yourself how miserable you've been, but now you're relieved, Andy, because it's done. You've done it.
Yes.
It's over.
And one
Massive
thing that
sense
is
of
remarkable, I think, we touched on pacing, is how consistent you kept your pacing throughout the whole of the race. In fact, your slowest 5K were the first 5K.
Yes, and that was to plan. So should we dive into it? Because my pacing didn't go quite to plan. It was relatively consistent in the grand scheme of things. Like it didn't fall off a cliff. And I'm quite proud of that, given what we're going to talk about in a minute. But I had some very dark moments out there. I had some very light and overly ambitious, as we'll come to find out, moments. But I also had some real dark moments where I was struggling.
You learn quite a lot in a marathon.
What were the darkest moments?
I spent the whole race thinking, I haven't seen Rick yet, and I'm upset about it. and I was looking for that ray of sunshine that you were going to bring to my race.
Rick has video evidence that you were at 16 kilometres?
16 kilometres.
Which is interesting because me and Tom were also at 16 kilometres.
I might have been 17.
And managed to see you.
I saw Jess from the running channel, so I have proof that I was there.
Oh, yes.
Just happened to miss Annie. I had a bit of a late night last night.
Yes.
So it did slow the morning down.
Look, this is a team effort, okay? Yeah. You did the running this weekend. Rick did the entertaining.
Yeah.
You know, they said there's no I in team. I don't think there's an R, an I, a C, or a K in team.
Hey, I was out with the team last night. I was spreading the brand.
Yes.
You were.
Yeah.
Huge shout out though to Jess from the team as well. She did incredibly well.
Yeah, I think she had some difficulties of her own. So it's like the marathon is hard. It's a bloody long way.
It is a long way.
That is like one of the first things you said when I saw you afterwards.
Yeah,
you were
it's
like,
too
long,
far.
Isn't it?
It's too far.
Yeah, I think they should shorten it.
If it was like 11K.
I think though that's the most interesting thing is like no matter how good you feel, like even up to like 35K, it's still not guaranteed. It's still not guaranteed. So let's get into it.
Yeah.
Cross over the line.
Yes.
First 5K. Yeah. How was it?
So my plan was to run between 4:15 and 4:30 per kilometre for the first 5K.
Disgusting.
So for context, 4:15 is 3-hour pace, and then 4:30 is a bit slower than 3-hour pace. But I haven't done the maths. I haven't done the maths, and my head hurts so much.
We're back in Cambridge,
and I can't. Oh my goodness, yeah. I have got an engineering degree. Honest, I was supposed to be good with numbers.
Mate, can you keep this podcast entertaining, please?
Okay, right. Let's not talk about the numbers. First 5K.
Yeah. That
was the plan, and I was pretty militant about that. So that went really well. And I was expecting, like the ShakeOut run, to be running into the back of people or to just be like out of control and not be able to run at my own pace. But actually what I had to do was hold myself back. Like I was in the 250 to 3 hour wave and everyone legged it at the start. Really fast.
So like when you start off, it's really cool. You go like either side of a roundabout.
Yes.
Which is
that
was the first place that me and Tom were stood trying to film you.
But then you're kept separate for quite a while after that.
Yeah, because you're going up either side of a road. So we were like, stick left, Andy. Whatever you do, make sure you're in the left.
Literally with only about 20 seconds before we crossed the start line, Freddie and I were on the wrong side.
Oh no.
We had to climb back around because it wasn't, we had to go back around some barriers to get to where we needed to be.
Excellent.
So first 5K, good.
Yeah.
And then the plan was to pick it up 4:15 per kilometre, which is 3 hour pace for the next 5K. So to get to 10K, the plan was that I would have been slightly outside 3 hour pace because 3 hours was my target. And then the idea was to just, if I felt strong, to just gradually pick the pace up as I went along. I got to 10K in, I want to say, 42:40, and 42:30 would be exactly 3 hour pace. So pretty good. I was having to take into account the fact that I was doing a lot of weaving. I definitely wasn't following the blue line. And so my watch was registering the Ks a fraction before each K marker. So I was trying to adapt to that early so that I wasn't going to kind of assume I was on for a particular time and then not worry about it. So I did that. And then we're 10K in. And actually 10K to 20K, I think, went the quickest of all of the sections. I was feeling pretty good. I was getting into my strategy for fueling and drinking and all of that stuff. And I was thinking about what was to come. I wanted to get to halfway. And I also wanted to push on from 20K to 30K. So that 10K to 20K, I did take the pace up a little bit.
Nice. And did it feel like it's quite hard when you know how much you've got to go to actually force yourself to go a bit quicker? So like how are you dealing with ramping it up a little bit?
So I definitely have paces and rhythms which feel more comfortable. Obviously, they get me more tired more quickly because they're harder. But to run slightly faster definitely feels better. So that kind of 4:15 to 4:30 pace doesn't feel very natural for me. But I have to do it to give myself a chance of kind of hanging on to the end of the marathon. But then from 10K to 20K, I was trying to run 4-minute Ks. So the idea was to run that 10K in right around 40 minutes. And I think I was pretty close to doing that. I can't remember all of my splits. My mind is mush right now. It doesn't work. But that was going all right. And actually, by the end of that, I was picking the pace up even more. Managing to drink. I had bottles on the course.
Oh yeah, aid stations.
Yes.
Were they
Carnage?
Yeah, were they carnage?
Yeah.
How did you find it? And then also, I feel like knowing you as a person, surely it must have really stressed you out that like the way that races do it quite often is you take your bottle or your cup and then you throw it to the side and then it gets swept up and that's how they clear it up.
Yeah.
Did that stress you out because you were like, oh my God, I'm going to stand on this?
Oh, well, yeah, because people were just dropping them in the middle of the road.
Yeah.
Oh, really?
And there was a lot of caps as well. People were taking the caps off and just dropping them.
Yeah.
So actually, that's quite dangerous. And probably for the first 15 to, first half, there was so many people. Like I've watched lots of marathons and I don't know what your experience has been as to how much space you've had at aid stations, but there was no space. It was
yeah,
tight.
you don't get
tight.
space. I think as well, like the scariest thing is that the pack in front of you at the start was quite intimidating. Like it's not, I think usually when you get like really, really big crowds, like when me and Tom did Chicago, we were in like a really tightly packed like group of people. Yeah. But there were so many crowds either side that you kind of didn't really hear it. Whereas what was scary in this one is that it's quite like, I think it's fair to say it's quite like a serious marathon. Like a lot of people who are running here have done one before. They're coming out because it's a fast course.
It's a fast course. It's
perfect
5:30
temperature.
maximum.
Yeah, so you don't get the kind of, it's still a really great marathon, but the crowds, from my perspective, were a bit thinner. And that means that all you can hear when you're stood on the sideline cheering on is like thundering footsteps coming towards you.
Yeah, I was quite swept. It was quite hypnotic. I quite enjoyed that. Certainly on the quieter parts of the course where it was, you could just hear the constant footsteps and there was a really, like you say, a pack of runners. So the noise was pretty cool. It was a beautiful course, really good weather. It started like 5-6 degrees at the beginning, but then very quickly I was seeing the street signs in the middle of the town that said 11 and then 14 later on. Beautiful sunshine, no wind, very flat.
Perfect
So
day for running.
It was absolutely glorious.
Perfect.
It was not a
What
perfect
would you know about
day.
it? You were in the spa.
On the ground, it was
Rick, you
beautiful.
must,
I looked
you
out the
must
window.
have come out when it got sunny, because it was not a perfect day for scooting, which is what me and Tom, how we got around.
Support crew, yeah. And you popped up all over the place.
So
unlike Rick.
cold.
Saw
So cold.
you 1,000 meters to go. Cheered you on.
You did. And that
And that got
genuinely-
you over the line.
It
That got
100%
you
did. Hey,
so thank goodness I made it.
You fast forwarded. You did save the day. You did save the day. You're very important, and I love you.
It is, honestly, though, if you want to spectate a Valencia Marathon, hire a scooter and a helmet, because that is a legal
need a helmet,
requirement here. And you can see, we saw you at 5, 8, 13, 26, 29.
Yeah.
And then from then, Tom was like, do we go to the finish? Do we go to anywhere in the middle? And I was like, let's go to 40 and see what happens. We got to 40 and then we just scooted alongside you until the finish, basically, shouting annoying things at you.
You were great, and it did like give me a big lift, and I had lots of lovely people shouting for me. I had my name on my bib. There's some Running Channel fans out on the course. I ran past a whole bunch of, or people also passed me who watched the Running
Not
Channel.
many.
Listen to the podcast. So.
Yeah, not many people passed you.
Well, we should talk about that, because I think you both got to see a slight disintegration of my mental state, physical state.
Loved that bit.
So I was pretty perky, smiling at you, very happy.
Yeah.
The first half, feeling
Yeah.
great. And actually, there's already people asking about this in the Strava comments. So the activities on Strava, if anyone wants to go and take a look at it, they can have a look and see what pacing I managed to do. So it's a beautiful pyramid of getting faster and faster and faster to probably, I don't know, maybe close to 30K or 25 to 30K. And then it comes back
straight
down
down
again.
the
Yes,
other
it's
side.
lovely. The down bit where I slowed down was not part of the plan. It should have been a pure negative split was the idea. So I got to about 18, 19K, and the plan had been from 20K halfway to push on, to go even faster than 250 pace, actually, which is what I was running at that point, the 4-minute Ks. And so actually from 19K to about 26K, I think I was running 350 per kilometer, which is, so actually I ran from 20 to 25K, I ran 19 minutes flat, I think, for 5K.
Right.
I felt amazing. I felt so good.
felt
I actually
good.
felt better running faster. Because my knee had started to hurt quite early, actually.
Well, is that the
50
low bit? Was that the low bit when your knee started to hurt?
Well, that was quite early, about 15, 16K, and I just made the decision I was just going to keep going. Like, there was no stopping or stretching or worrying about the fact that, because in training you're worried about running again 2 or 3 days later. So this is different. So I pushed through, and just felt great. So no, this is a high. I'm still feeling great. At this point, I'm like, I get to 25K, and I'm thinking, I'm not naive enough that I was thinking this marathon's a piece of cake. Like, this marathon business is easy. But
if you'd come back and said that, I would have been so annoyed.
but at that point, I was like, I've got this. I can keep going at this pace. This feels great.
Yeah.
But that was 17K to go. That's quite a long way. Quite a lot changed.
Oh, naive
yeah.
little Andy.
And so
out on the course.
So I had to back off, actually, as it was approaching 30K. And I did slow down a little bit, but not much. I was still managing to maintain it. But that's the point where I was starting to feel cramps in my hamstrings, in my calves, where it was really changing the way I was having to run. I was having to shuffle even more than I do normally. I'm having to shorten my stride, having to not quite toe off in the same way that I would normally do. And that was just, and then it became a big mental game for me. So it was...
Because have you experienced, did you already know that that kind of stuff would help cramp? Or is it literally I know I'm about to cramp. This is starting to feel like I won't if I do this.
Yeah, no, it was more of a kind of guesswork. I was trying different things out, to see what was allowing me to run as quick as possible without feeling because you can feel a twinge sometimes. You can feel it start to flutter almost the muscle. And that was what I was experiencing. And I knew it wasn't hydration or energy, because I'd been really militant with my gels and my drinking. And I was well hydrated before we start. And then it was just conditioning of my muscles, and that was when I was starting to go into the unknown. So I went past 32K, and that was a massive mental...
The unknown.
Yeah, but it was positive because in my mind I was like, if I can get into that last 10K. So once I was past 32.2K, that was massive. I was like, yes.
You looked in pain, mate. I've got to say, your face was so focused. It was determined, but you looked in absolute agony when I saw you.
I'd been soaking stuff up. I've been doing this,
Yeah.
and this cool music and stuff for about the first 25K. And then 5K to early 30s, that was when I was like, right, I'm just going to focus, calm down. Let's keep it under control. And then after about 35K, it was a proper war of attrition. I was wearing headphones. We had that debate on the podcast, but I didn't have any music on because Freddie was with me and I was just soaking it all up. But then the reason I put them on, and I already have music queued up, was in case this moment happened where I needed a distraction. And so I hit the button on my headphones, the music started.
Oh, which song?
It was a Mumford & Sons song, actually.
Oh, was it?
So like nice,
Bit
fast-paced folk.
Yeah.
I like a bit of folk. And it was just enough to then...
Take the edge off.
Yeah. But then I did get to 39-ish kilometers. And bear in mind, all of this is going to be in a video as well. So you can witness
see
this.
the pain as well as hear the pain.
You can see this complete, nosedive fall off. I fell off a cliff.
It is an incredible thing though of how like when you start off a marathon, you have so much motivation with, I don't know, 35K to go. You're like, no, come on, I can do this.
Yeah.
And then when you have 5K to go, that feels so much
long.
further than when
So
you have
long.
35K to go.
And it was tight. We were talking about how tight it was. That last, I'd say 3-4 kilometers, which goes down the Turia Garden.
Oh, nice. Yeah.
It's about 3 meters across.
It was like the
people kind of
scenes-
jumping across, and there's no barriers. If you think if the only marathons are the end of London, Boston, or New York, the roads are so wide, and the barriers are on both sides, and you can't get anywhere near. But you were running down like it's like a tunnel, isn't it?
It was like those scenes of the Tour de France where where the people are almost moving out of the way as the cyclists come up. They weren't closing the tunnel like they do in the Tour de France, but that kept me going as well. And that's the point when I saw you, right, where it was. But I had at this point I had my head down. From 10K to 7K to go, I was feeling all right. Once I got to 7K to go, that it felt like it was way further than when I had 10K to go. It was really mentally difficult. And that was why I had my head down. I was just looking at the floor and I was just trying to tick it off like one step at a time, trying to make sure that I could just take a kilometer off
at a time
and not worry about it. And then I was panicking because you do a long run sometimes and you think you're at whatever it might be, 25K, and you look at your watch and you've just misread it and it's 23K. And you're like, oh no. And that was my worst nightmare, that I was going to be in my mind thinking, right, the next one's 40K or whatever it is. And then I'd look up and see 36K and I just totally miscounted.
The nice thing though, right at the end of the marathon, is then they take all of the guesswork out for you, because obviously you said that like because you're darting around and going around that like your watch isn't necessarily going to match up where you are on the course. But then as you come out of the, whatever you said the garden was called,
the Turia Garden.
Perfect. And then you come into the incredible water.
Yes, they built like a floating finish on the water.
Oh, in the Ciudad de las Artes et les Sciences.
The Science Museum.
Yes. Incredible. Rick has been our local translator on this course.
Well, I can tell you that
please can order some
tell
wine.
you that the Turia Garden was actually built in 1961 after a devastating flood in 1957, where the city council actually voted on building a 9-kilometer garden that used to be a river through the centre of Valencia. It was diverted to the south.
Hang on a minute. No. Right, we need
You
to.
didn't even read that. Is that true? I don't think. Google at home. Google at home.
Yeah.
That was true. It's true.
But
It's
no,
true.
just before. Hang on. Rewind to earlier in this podcast when I spoke for about 3 seconds on pacing for a marathon, quite relevant to the Running Channel podcast.
Yeah.
And your reply was, "Keep it interesting, mate." God, we just had to listen to a
Rick
30-second diatribe about you because you've made some notes to make yourself sound smart.
Hang on, these are not notes. I want to sell people Valencia if they're thinking about doing this really fast marathon.
I tell you what, especially
Valencia is a very special city. And
Yeah.
what is it the birthplace of, Sarah?
probably knowing you, and it's a
Something
you fact, the
wine-related.
Spa.
Close. It's Paella.
And we had
Oh,
Paella
we have
on our
The
Paella.
birthplace of Paella. That's where
It's
we are.
really good.
Yeah.
Just
Also-
to be clear, please don't trust any of these facts as truth.
Yeah, no.
These are all facts.
Okay.
These are
Don't
from
use it in your homework.
Valencia
Don't use it, yeah.
Tourism.España.
But if you do want a winter marathon, it was -2 in the UK in London
Yeah.
when we
Yeah.
left. It's a lovely 16 degrees here.
It's gorgeous. It's going to be
Beautiful.
22 in the
Bit
week.
hot by the end,
Really
certainly.
perks
I can
me up.
understand why every single one of those 835,000 residents in this city live
Oh
here.
my God, stop. Please stop.
Right, Andy, crossing the finish line. How did that feel?
Yeah, it was a real struggle going. It was counting off. So every 100 meters there was a barrier saying a sign saying how far you had to go.
Yeah, me and Tom passed the 300 to go mark, and I was like, "Oh, you would be crying at that point if you've seen his Chicago video."
I feel a bit like I've let the team down by not crying.
It's all right.
But you're not a crier. Give us some time.
Oh yeah.
Oh yes, I can't remember. Hang on, it was 2:53, 49.
And Freddie's
2:53, 48.
He deserves that second. He deserves more than that second.
That boy is a whippersnapper and a wafer thin mint. Unbelievable. He just delivers. He wouldn't eat the tuna last night because he was worried.
I didn't eat it either.
You didn't eat the tuna.
No.
You missed out there.
tuna packed.
Anyway.
So then I crossed the line and I got a medal and I run a marathon, and now you guys can't take the mickey out of me anymore.
Well, you know what? Something you haven't run an ultra marathon.
Yeah, don't bother.
It.
And speaking of what's next, so we've covered kind of the entire course,
Yeah.
but we asked the Running Channel community for their questions. So up next, we've got quick fire questions, your questions, and we're going to delve deeper into what it actually felt like.
Well, we're packing it in this week, aren't we?
It's
Well,
a special
you are.
new feature, and we got so many questions. So thank you very much for sending us stuff.
Oh yeah, so me and Rick both went through all of the questions that we got on Instagram, and there were so many. So I'm so sorry we can't answer all of them. So to get through as many as possible, Rick's picked out some quick fire questions. So Andy, don't whittle on. Off we go.
Andy, this is from Another Thing Running. Would you ever do another marathon?
Yes.
This one's from Edward G 1201. What mile was the toughest?
Oh, probably. So I was doing it in kilometers, but it would have been from 39 to 40 kilometers was the toughest bit. That's when I had the cramp.
Terrald89 asks, how fast is Freddie?
Faster than me. like he was incredible. I wouldn't have got round in the way that I got round today without his support, and I think he's got at least 15 minutes on me. Probably.
Really? Andy Barely Runs. This is nothing to do with you.
Is that a fan account?
Oh, what is it? That's what it's called. Andy Baddeley.
Yeah, it's a fan account. Different to the toughest question. Lowest point, highest point.
Oh, the highest point would have been at some point between 20 and 25k when I was just cruising along and all of a sudden felt like I'd clicked into a rhythm. That all crossing the line, which was magical. And then lowest point would have been a bit earlier, actually, probably like a real low point at 35k. 7k to go, I wasn't sure I was going to finish.
Scuff, scuff, scuff. Make or break mental hurdle.
That mental hurdle at that point, it was whether to walk or not.
Oh, really?
And it wasn't because...
So it actually crossed your mind to walk?
Yeah.
Sorry, this is supposed to be quick fast. Sorry.
That can distract
I want
you
to put
for like
context in
miles.
That. I think that can really help you if it's part of your plan, walking, and run walk's a good strategy. It wasn't part of my strategy, and I was worried that if I started walking, I would just bin it off and like DNF.
Oh, I see. I just never thought anyone who was running that fast would do any walking at all. But there you go.
One thing that's really interesting, Anna did a video on this, is that if you employ a run-walk strategy, you might actually be able to go faster than if you just ran it for some people.
Yeah, exactly.
Jeffing.
So I was worried that if I walked, then I would stop and then I would stretch and then I might not start again.
Yeah, I had that in my first marathon. Started walking at like just after halfway.
And
had never done run walking. So
Really?
once I start walking, I was like, oh, walking's nice. I'll just do this instead.
What other people can't see right now is just how cross Rick is that you've interrupted his quick fire question.
Quick fire, Rick.
Quick fire,
Sorry.
Sarah.
I'm sure you've
For
got
goodness
some more
sake,
Valencia facts.
We planned this bit.
What he's saying is
Eric
don't talk. This is my
Schletz.
bit.
Sorry, we're
Eric
taking up
Schletz
precious
from Canada.
spa
Shall I
time.
talk about Canada for a while, shall I? Loads of Canadians here, by the way. Love Canadians. So much I married one. What was your pain level?
My pain level for the last 10k, it escalated from like 8 to then 10 for the last 7k. Yeah.
All right, and that concludes the quick fire questions. Thank you, Sarah.
On to me. You can be slightly longer, but still try to avoid being too long.
Okay, how many questions have we got to get through?
Well, I picked out 9, but some of them Rick's already used.
We're not doing 9.
Okay, right, we're not doing 9.
So if you did take the time to ask a question, then Sarah and I would happily have answered them all.
But Rick wouldn't
won't
have
let
done.
us. So just so you know.
This is what we're up against.
Someone's got to edit this podcast.
Me and Andy will be in the spa.
Might as well
whilst
do
you
some
that.
work, you lazy.
I've booked you in the spa tomorrow morning at 10 o'clock.
They're opening it 10 minutes early, so it's
They
actually
are, for
9:50.
you.
Anyway,
Yeah.
right,
Bring your medal.
on with the questions. Ben Culligan asked, who would have been more annoying to have as a support crew, Rick or Sarah?
Sneaks in.
Is this
Sneaks in.
do we even need to answer this question?
Is this podcast Ben?
This is podcast Ben.
Podcast Ben.
Podcast Ben.
So Sarah picked these without
Your
knowing that was you.
question made it.
I love you, Ben.
But he did say than Rick and Sarah, who would have been more annoying.
Oh, so you're going to put him up on his grammar?
Yeah, I'm
Renee,
assuming he's implying himself.
Well, he's 12 hours ahead, so he's probably been on the Gabby.
That's
Well,
fine.
Ben would have been an incredible supporter. Who's more annoying between you and Rick? Is that Rick by a factor of at least 10?
That's so unfair.
But so true. One thing that I really enjoyed with these questions is that, as per our previous podcast where we talked about running from London to the Wirral, and Rick was aghast that people weren't putting where they from on Instagram because they didn't have enough characters. People have started doing it. So
Even on Insta.
on Insta, Beth, Birmingham,
Nice work.
clever Beth,
Nice work,
not
Beth.
using up characters.
work.
Was there any part of the marathon experience you didn't expect to happen?
Ooh.
Oh, didn't expect to happen. I had anticipated the whole wall thing. Yeah.
The wall thing.
Snooze. Wall.
People
Happens.
talk about it, but I thought that it would be, I don't know, somehow like tiredness more than what I was experiencing. And it could be how everyone experienced it, but I experienced it as physical pain in my muscles in terms of the cramping, and I literally just couldn't move properly.
Was it a similar wall that you had ever experienced in your professional career?
No, this is I've never experienced anything like this. It was
Never.
Horrible.
What, even in the Olympics?
I only ran for 3.5 minutes, so it's just a totally
As we keep telling you.
just a totally different kind of pain that's over really fast.
But you have to push yourself to the extreme in the Olympics.
Yeah, it's a different kind of red line.
So quick question.
Yeah.
What's harder, 1,500 metres or a marathon?
Oh,
And
I never thought I'd have to think about that.
who's a tougher athlete, a 1,500 metre athlete at the Olympics or a marathoner at the Olympics?
Sarah, can we cut there now, please? Sorry.
There goes his career.
Yeah.
Did you?
No,
opt-
1,500 metre athletes are the best athletes in the world.
Yeah, obviously.
It's the hardest race on the planet. You've got the tactics. You've got to train harder than anyone else.
Yeah.
It's it requires way more dedication than anything else. Any other sport in the Olympics is the best.
Is he still talking?
You do realize you just said any other sport in
Sarah.
the Olympics is the best.
Yeah, and
That's how tired
it's all right.
you
He's
are.
just ran a marathon.
It's all
There
right,
was a
yeah.
guy who came up to him at the Expo who knew all his stats from the Olympics. It was like, oh, I remember I saw you this race in
Yeah.
2017.
Yeah, that was really nice. I don't normally get to talk about the kind of the pro stuff.
Yeah.
And yeah, people said they liked last week's podcast when we were incoherent for running home for Christmas.
So more of the same.
We really liked it too.
He did. Ernest WCZ asked, what was tougher, training or the actual marathon?
The marathon by miles. So it's that bit where I didn't want to risk going, or and I had the training plan that didn't put me over 32k.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't have gone over it anyway because of my injury history. But then you just that last 10 goes into the unknown, and it was so hard.
Into the unknown.
Mentally and physically hard.
Mike asked, will Andy be doing the 48-hour rule of deciding, do you do another one? Yes or maybe.
Oh, that is interesting.
Probably not. I'm already fairly sad. I'd quite like to do another one.
Really?
Even though so this is the
When? Which one?
No, stop it. This is the competitor in me that I've run it, and I've run a time that I'm really pleased with.
Yeah.
But I blew a gasket, relatively speaking, in that last 10k. So I'm like, I want to know what I could do if I didn't do that.
Oh, he's got unfinished business.
Oh, I see. But then this is so flat in Valencia here.
Yeah, maybe I'll just come and do this one again.
Exactly.
I'll only run in Valencia.
Nice climate.
I don't know, but I'm up for it. But I'll have to get. It takes a lot of time to train for it, and I think I'd want to train more than 3 times. And I think I'd want to train more than 3 times a week if I was going to do it again.
Is that a public, please everyone, allow your wife to let you train more than 3 times a week?
I think she doesn't listen to the podcast so that she doesn't get swept up in all of your nonsense.
Right, okay. Another question, a few more. Rick's trying to cut me
Yeah, he's
off.
trying to wrap us up, but we're not having it. Let's keep
Sorry,
going.
Rick. You can edit out your bits to make it shorter.
This is the Mediterranean as a city, but we need to do this succinctly.
So Stu runs Stratford upon and then it cuts off. What's the one thing from being a pro that you wish you could have taken into a mass participation race?
What that I wish I could have had like
from pro life.
Broadly just rocking up on the start line and just like complete control of my warm up and timings and everything. Turn up, the gun goes, bang, you're off. Like that.
There's no messing around.
Yeah. It's the faff beforehand that.
But you cut out the
actually,
faff. You went there. You made it with 5 minutes to spare this morning.
Yeah, we it was pretty slick. But I would also say maybe the expo. Like, you rock up at your hotel for
the queuing
for the Diamond League or something, and they give you your number at the hotel, and then you go up to your room and chill out. Whereas like queuing to get into an expo is not an experience that is designed to help runners run their best.
It was interesting seeing you at the expo because I quite like an expo. You can like look around, buy some stuff. I wanted to be in and out. Andy was like, right, I've got my bib. What else do we need to do? And I was like, well, I need to film you doing this. We need to go here. Yeah. And you were like, what?
Yeah.
Get out, get back, lunch, limoncello spritz.
For you.
Yeah, that was Rick's day. One final question.
Okay.
From Vicky Joseph. Andy, was it worth it?
Yeah. Oh, you want me to say more?
Yeah, more.
Rick doesn't want me to say more. Yes, it was. Like it's if you'd asked me on retiring from professional sport whether I would have felt a sense of pride or achievement in doing what I've done today. So running a marathon where I think I was 52 minutes behind the winner.
Mm-hmm. Do you want to, I wasn't going to share this stat with you, but because you said that.
Oh, is this about how old Bakaylee is?
No, do you want to know how ridiculously quick Valencia Marathon is? Do you know what your overall placing was?
Oh, no, I don't, but it'd be like 13,000.
This is like, just for context, your time is something that I will never achieve. It's
never.
like absolutely phenomenal.
This is going to be a depressing end to the podcast, isn't it?
Overall, sorry. I just feel like we should put into context like how many incredible runners there are, because you are at no matter what time you run, but this is how fast this marathon is. You ran 2:53.49 and you were 3,413th overall.
Not bad, I'd say.
I thought.
It's not bad.
I'll take it.
That's so good.
Yeah.
But that is like ridiculous how many quick runners there are.
Yeah, but I guess to answer the question, but I take real joy in my own motivation, which is like just to see little bits of improvement relative to what I was last week and what I was a year ago. And a year ago I was hardly running at all. And then this challenge gave me the proper motivation to actually train, to get massively fitter than I was 6 months ago. And then to do something that I didn't think I would ever do. And to join all of those amazing people out there who have run a marathon, and hopefully maybe to inspire other people who think that they might not be able to do one as well, regardless of what the time is. It's totally irrelevant. Like just if we can support people to get out there and run a marathon, then and in me doing what I've done, that it might even just get someone running in the first place, then that's a nice thing.
I do think it is like incredible how much you learn running a marathon.
Yeah.
Like that's what I love the most. And I think as well, it's the best distance in that it humbles you. Like no matter, you're not going to get beginner's luck in a marathon. You can hit every single goal you've set and you'll probably still come away going, I want to have another go at that. Or like, I want to enjoy this part more, or I want to nail the aid station a bit better, or, I want to buy this bit of kit to do this. Yeah. Like I love it. And had a great day.
And it's the only sporting event in the world where the amateurs run behind the elites.
Yeah.
There's nothing else like it.
No, Wimbledon, they don't let everyone come out onto the tennis court.
Have a little knock around at Old Trafford at 5 o'clock on a Saturday afternoon.
I think you used the word humble. That's how I felt. I felt completely humbled by it at the end. Like it had broken me, but I feel like I've achieved something. So
we're proud of you, mate.
Thank you. And we had some nice hugs afterwards. It was
we had some nice hugs.
And everyone who is listening to or watching this podcast, you can watch the race as well, because we're going to be putting the video out on YouTube, and hopefully that you'll get to see up close my discomfort and all of the stuff that I went through.
You deserve a back rub and something else.
Rick, you can sort all of that out yourself.
Sort that for you now.
Well, Andy, I know me and Rick, take the mick quite a lot, but genuinely, well done.
Well done,
I've
mate.
spent a lot of this year thinking you weren't going to do this. But you did.
I can't believe you've done it. I cannot believe you've done it.
Well, thanks very much.
Maybe we should all run a marathon together next year. Which one should we do?
What, with one of those elastic bands holding us along?
The invisible one that I keep talking to you about on running, on your run, Sarah.
Actually, no, we can. How about we run the same marathon but separately?
I think so.
But I'm now going to break from tradition, and I'm going to ask a favour. I said that maybe I might have, through doing what I've been doing and documenting it and talking about how difficult I found it, inspired some people to get out there and run more. If you like the podcast, then please share it with any of the runners that you know or people you think might get into running, because we'd love more people to listen to it and hopefully to email in at podcast@therunningchannel.com if they have any questions, and we will answer them.
And that was Andy's favour that he's just asked you. So from me, Andy and Sarah.
Goodbye. We'll see you back in the UK.
Goodbye, Rick. Took me totally by surprise. Thanks very much.